Welcome to the Geek podcast, where our lives are full of games. I'm Void, and I'm here with my co-host Beej.
Bleep, bloop, bleep, bloop, bleep.
Today we're doing another episode about games of our lives, which we've done this before, but it's kind of like diving into certain time periods in our lives, and like sometimes you just get a sense memory for what you were doing at the time. And because we've been playing games our whole lives, we have some sense memories of around, like, I remember exactly where I was, what I was doing when I was playing this game. And the last time we talked about it, it was like our childhood kind of side of things, kind of up through high school. So we never did like college and beyond. And that's what we wanted to circle back to today and kind of like finish out the second half of it. I'm sure there will be more in the future, but kind of like college through, approximately now, sometime in the last couple of years.
It's kind of like music for a lot of other people, where you hear a song and it attaches to you, and then you see just small things that will remind you of it, and you kind of get taken right back there. And for me, it's getting snapshots of individual levels or situations I've been in that are just stuck right there. Like if somebody mentions college, I automatically think of like this one part of like Halo 1 or something like that I don't even think of the whole game. It's like this one small like screenshot that encapsulates everything for me in my mind.
Well, yeah, okay, so let's get into it. So you went to college before me. You and I are about 4 years separated here, which is always kind of interesting. So what were you playing in college?
So Halo 1 is actually the first one that came to mind. Like somebody mentions college and I think about because I went to college from, dropped out in 2001, went back in the spring of 2002 and graduated in the spring of 2006. So I think automatically of Halo 1. The very first Halo, my friend Casey was the one with an Xbox, and we had 4-player split screen Halo death matches. And when I think of Halo, it is straight up just a picture in my mind of the Halo pistol, and being in I can't even remember the name of the arena that we played in all the time, but the pistol is what I think of for Halo more than anything else, because of being in college and all of us playing that, and my friend Luke being so good with the pistol.
Interesting. So that's like your main college gaming memory.
Yeah, like memory like that. Probably the other biggest one I've had was Silent Hill 3. My friend, I know I've told this story, so I won't linger on it, but my friend Bob went through like all of the difficulties, easy, normal, if there was one above that wasn't hard, extreme, and then up to extreme 10. And we sat and watched him, and eventually he got to the point where he wouldn't save as he got up to like extreme 10. And so we sat there and were totally invested in him not making any mistakes, or else our night was ruined by watching him do it, and we get so mad. So Silent Hill 3 also has one of those. It's really, really special to me to think about, because I got so invested in knowing every little part of that game to help Bob get through all of the extreme difficulties.
That's super interesting. Yeah, like I don't know if I had a game that I did a deep dive like that on, especially in college, but it's cool that you did, and it was with like a group of people.
Yeah, and that's a lot of my gaming during that period was either online or group gaming. Like I played Ultima Online a bunch, and going to college was the first time that I got to play that game on a broadband connection rather than a dial-up connection, and you needed a ping of under 100 milliseconds to be able to really compete in PvP. And so we were on dial-up, so we generally had about a 300 to 700 ping, and we got to the point where we knew how to manipulate that and got really, really good at PvP and playing that game and made names for ourselves. So you put all of us who are used to having a handicap on a broadband connection finally, where we have like a 20 ping, and we started destroying people in PvP, and it was just an amazing feeling at that point, playing that and getting into the beta of Star Wars Galaxies and having the community around there, being a part of the Stratix community before it came out. It was when I played Final Fantasy 11 with my friends, and we realized what a terrible MMO it was and how we couldn't get anywhere in it. And then World of Warcraft came out in 2004, and that was pretty much the rest of it. Like there were like we had LAN parties. It was the only time in my life I ever had LAN parties, but it was for World of Warcraft. Like people would just bring their computers over and we would hook up in my computer room. And so there would be like 5 to 8 of us hooked up on laptops and computers on tables, just in the same room playing WoW. Not even raiding because it was too new. Like we weren't raiders at that point, just playing and doing dungeons and doing our own thing, but just together. Like World of Warcraft really was a community-based game for me. Not even online community, just all of us in person playing it together.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, the only time that I really did LAN parties was in high school. So it's probably the same years that you were doing it. I was just still in high school and you were in college. And for us, it was more like Warcraft 3 and a lot of Warcraft 3 mods and some StarCraft and a lot of like Counter-Strike, like that kind of game.
Right. So the actual LAN parties where you're actually connecting over the local area network to play rather than just getting it in, because mine was in spirit. Like we were still connecting over the internet, but didn't actually do I would call it LAN parties because it was the same idea, but not actually technically there.
Yeah. So, I mean, by the time that I got to college, so again, a couple years later, it probably picks up like right where you left off. And for me, like I have a couple games that stick out. Oh, it's almost year by year. So like Tiger Woods PGA Tour, and I think it must have been like 2005 or 2006 edition of the Tiger Woods PGA Tour. That was like the year that I was in the dorms, and I played that with my roommate, who's one of my best friends, and we just played that for like hours and hours every night, like before we went to bed, just because we had nothing to do when we were freshmen in the dorms. And then like Final Fantasy 12 was one of the first years that I had a house off campus. I remember just like playing that in my dorm room on like nights where I was there, because I would go home every weekend to go work because I wasn't that far from home and I liked working, so I'd get out of there. So it was like weeknights, like school nights is what I remember, like playing that in my room that probably wasn't actually a legal room because there were too many of us in that house, but hey, we made it work. Like that room is where I played that game. And then Mario Kart DS. And this is one where I played this, and then my girlfriend at the time started playing it, who's now my wife. And then I bought her a DS so we could both have a copy of it and play it together. So this is probably like one of the first games that my wife and I played together while we were dating, like very early on when we were dating.
That's really fantastic that happened. Like Jennifer had never played games. Had she played games before you did that, and you bought her the DS?
A little bit, but not a ton. You know, like some N64 stuff, and that was kind of it. And she was never a huge gamer, and she still isn't. But there's the occasional game that she'll get into, and that was one of those games that she just latched onto, and we played it a bunch together when we were in college. So that was super fun.
Yeah, it would be. I mean, that's kind of the way that it worked with me and Jennifer with Mario Kart, except ours wasn't on the DS. She didn't grow up with video games at all. Like her parents really actually didn't like video games and wouldn't let them have any kind of console. So her friends had played Mario Kart. They never taught her how. Like she would always get really frustrated when they would do the like Double Dash or N64 or anything, so that she wouldn't know what to do and they wouldn't take the time to actually explain it. She didn't even understand like the buttons. Like she had never really played before. I'm like, hey, you do this, you do this, you do this, you do this, and that this button does that. And she's just sitting looking at the like 64 controller, getting frustrated and angry, and just never played. I took the time to teach her how to do it, but it was on the Wii. No, actually, it was with Double Dash first. And we started playing that together, so it was kind of the same thing, and that got her interested. And I had 2 DSs, and while I didn't have Mario Kart for them, and I couldn't afford to get another 2 copies because I'd lost my main one, like she was playing. She borrowed my Castlevania Order of Ecclesia to play on it. That she really, really liked it and really wanted to get into games and play stuff like that around that same time. It was about 2008 for us when we first got together.
Yeah, so like those are kind of my primary ones for college that stick out, but then the undercurrent to all of college and then into like right after college, it was like Guitar Hero. Like that was the college game at the time when I was there. It was like Guitar Hero just came out, and then I think my second year-ish, maybe my third year, Guitar Hero 2. But by the time I was like finishing up college or like right after college, it was like Rock Band, right? So it's kind of that era. And I just remember that as like an undercurrent, like all the time. You know, I guess kind of along with that, there was like Wii Sports. Like we used to do Wii bowling a lot in the first house that I was in. So that was one that kind of carried over multiple years of college that all kind of blend together, where I don't have as specific of like sense memories of them as I do of the other ones I called out. But they were just kind of always present during that time of my life with some kind of Guitar Hero or Rock Band, and then some kind of like Wii Sports messing around with roommates, basically.
There was a 2-year period between me graduating college and Jennifer and I starting to date. And one of the things you mentioned in Guitar Hero that reminded me is that we would play Guitar Hero 3 a ton at my house. Like my friends would come over, and it was before Rock Band came out. That was when Guitar Hero was new. I got Guitar Hero 3 and the guitar for the 360 for Christmas. And so when people mention Guitar Hero, I have this just idea in my head of the sun shining in my front door there, me and one of my other friends playing with their guitar, standing in my living room, like trying to beat each other in the 2-player. That you mentioning Guitar Hero, I didn't even think about that until, because like 2007, maybe 2006, like right when we moved in. So yeah, right around then.
It's kind of interesting that we have some similar veins here between like the games and game styles and like what we were playing. Even though we're a couple years off from each other, it's obvious that there's some similar DNA going on there.
Yeah, and it was during that period, actually, during our notes, I put it in the wrong place because I went and looked up what year it had been released, and it was the first BioShock that I remember during that same period where you were in college, and it was while I was in graduate school, but between dating somebody else and dating Jennifer, I remember going, like, I couldn't afford BioShock, and I'd heard good things about it, and I have this memory of my roommate going out of town, me having the entire weekend to myself, not doing anything at all. I actually went to Blockbuster Video back when it actually existed and you could go rent games. I rented the first BioShock and sat all weekend long and beat the original BioShock. And that's one of those memories that I have as well, of just when somebody mentions that series, it's late at night, one lamp is on off to the right, me sitting cross-legged on my couch with a white 360 controller in my hand, playing this, doing my best to save all of the little sisters. That no, I saved them in second. Excuse me, trying to kill all of the little sisters. I saved them in BioShock 2, which my wife got me because I told her how much I enjoyed that.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, one of my strongest like sense memories in here is kind of like the next section we want to talk about. So like moving in with your significant other and then marriage, because for me, like my wife and I, we moved in together like years before we got married, and you didn't move in until right around the time you got married, right?
Yeah, like right after we got married. We didn't move in. She did not move in until after we got back from our honeymoon. It's both a cultural thing down here. It's not a big thing, but our families are crazy. I'm just gonna put crazy in that way, and where even if we had wanted to or been able to, it logistically lined up, it would have caused way more family drama for us to have moved in together before we were married than it was worth. We had discussed it and it was like, yeah, we just can't. This is not worth the time of the. This is not worth doing because of the family drama. Yeah. Such a different culture than most of the rest of the country. And that was 10 years ago still. So it's not as though it's like in the 60s or something.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and the thing is, like, nothing sticks out in my mind for like what I was playing around when I got married, because the bigger step is moving in with each other, you know? And like, that's one of those things that a lot of people I've talked to, like whether they waited to move in until they got married or they got like moved in way ahead of time before they got married, like my wife and I did, like we lived together for years, like moving in together and adjusting to living with the other person, that's the big adjustment. After that, getting married is like nothing. I mean, it's not nothing. Yeah. It counts for something, but compared to like actually learning how to live with somebody, like that's the hard part. After you get over that, then marriage is kind of just a piece of paper and like the government recognizing it. So I don't have anything from the marriage part that sticks out in my head, but I do have like memories from right when we moved in together into our first apartment. You know, it's just like 1-bedroom apartment, and the one that's the strongest for me, just because it's like associated with smells, and you know how like smells you have a stronger memory associated with. So we had this giant like love sack that we didn't have a couch yet because we literally had just moved in together, and it had been in my basement for a while and it was fine, but it was a little musty. So we hit that thing with like so much Febreze that whenever you sat in it for like a year, all you could smell was Febreze. And so I just remember like smelling Febreze and playing Braid when Braid originally came out on probably like Xbox Live Arcade. Like Febreze and Braid are now forever linked in my head, no matter how hard I would like to unlink them. It's just kind of the way that it is.
I understand that happens a lot with smell to me. It's like I'll smell certain things, like it's usually must, stuff like that that's real musty, that'll have that particular smell, and it'll remind me of like Mario 64 is one of them. There's a particular kind of like room smell that my bedroom smelled like when I was 14, and when I smell something like that, I think about Bowser actually on Mario 64, twirling him around. Like I'll smell things as the way it is. I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, so it was like Braid is the main one, and then the other one that I remember playing a lot of when I was like on that love sack, in place of a couch before we actually got a couch, was Geometry Wars 2 or Geometry Wars Retro Evolved 2, whatever the official name of that game is. I played a lot of that game.
I could never get into that. It was one that I'd heard so many good things about. When I finally tried it, I just could not get into Geometry Wars.
Yeah, I don't know what to say to that. It's a good game. Nope. I liked it a lot.
It's a good game. Fun. I recognize that it's a good game. It's just not my kind of game. I wanted to like it.
Especially passive mode. That was the one where you never attack. You just kind of run away, but then you go through these gates that would explode and destroy other guys around you. That was like my jam for a while. I love that game. But so for you, moving in together in marriage was kind of the same time. So you have a bunch of games listed here. And I know that you've talked about like Mario Kart and playing that on your honeymoon is like one of the main things that you've talked about a bunch of times. But I'm kind of surprised by a couple of the other ones that you have listed.
Yeah, like Mass Effect actually is one that I remember a lot through here. It's because I never beat it. I never beat Mass Effect, but I was always going back to it. I don't remember if Jennifer got it for me as a gift. I don't remember if my parents got it for me as a gift. I remember sitting down all the time after we got married, trying to get through Mass Effect, getting frustrated with it for one reason or another, and then not beating it. And at the same time, it's that era of 360 games there that right near the end of the system's life, where I didn't get Mass Effect 2 because of not having beaten the first one and keep trying to go back. And then I had Dragon Age Origins that I never opened because I was trying to beat Mass Effect first, and then my 360 red ringed, and I never got to play Dragon Age Origins, and it like I remember having to sell it and getting so sad about that. Like I have no memories of the actual game, but I see it on my shelf when I think of the Xbox 360 and that time period where I was just like, Mass Effect was so, and I'm bad at it, really, obviously. I was so bad at Mass Effect. It was so hard for me that I was during that time where I would not turn the difficulty down or re-roll a better class, where I it just hard-walled me after that. And then it was also the period of my life where I played the most World of Warcraft in terms of rating than I ever was. Like it was during the time where Jennifer learned that World of Warcraft is not a game that I particularly enjoy. It was during the early first couple of years of our marriage that she actually helped me come to realize that I don't actually like World of Warcraft. Like honestly, that it's not always fun for me, and when I realize that it's not fun is when I need to stop playing it and take a break, because we were raiding. It was when my guild had finally moved into actual heroic raiding, which was they've changed the names of it now, but back when it was heroic, and we were going through, and all the time she would just hear me scream curse words, and she would know that I died, and like she was like, I always hear you yelling this like you're angry. You come out in a bad mood. It's like you're working a second job. Like you're spending like 20 hours a week on this, and it's not making you happy. You don't enjoy this. And I'm like, yeah, I don't really enjoy this right now. It's like I'm not having a good time with this. And so it kind of she helped me realize my dysfunctional relationship with WoW because of how much I was raiding and how angry that it was making me, which was also a whole lot of stuff going on in our personal lives, which it turns out were manifestations of, the anxiety and bipolar type 2 that I have and didn't know about at the time that it was being triggered. But yeah, World of Warcraft is one of the biggest games of like marriage during that early period that I can think of, and it's not necessarily a positive memory, but it's the one I remember is fighting Ragnaros in Cataclysm. That's what I think, and it may not even be during that period. That may not even be during this time period where I'm married. It's one of those where the game, it's the memory more than actually what was going on. I remember Fire standing in it, yelling, and what I think was Ragnaros, and Jennifer being like, "Honey, you're getting too upset about this. Like this can't be healthy." And I realized, no, it's not healthy. It's really
well. At least
really
you
not.
realized it. It helped you get there, right?
It did. It really did. And I mean, I logged into World of Warcraft like 2 days ago but it was not to play it like this. It was to see other content, play very casually, talk to people who were on, leave a message for Ken, things like that. And that was what I did on it. Nothing like I used to be when I play that game, and other MMOs too.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it kind of like gets us to like the next time period. So I put having kids because I have a couple memories around that, and then you put your nephew, which is a good one. Right. So those will tie together. But for me, the strongest memory I have is like my daughter right after she was born. I was playing Halo Reach around that time, and I can't remember if it came out right around then or if I had just been like getting into it or still playing the multiplayer. But I have a bunch of memories of just like playing that game with like a newborn baby in my lap. And so that was like her first game, right? She wasn't aware of it. She doesn't remember it. But like that was the first game that like I played with her in my lap. So that was really cool. And then I was trying to think about like my son and like what I was playing around the time he was born. But the thing that they don't tell you about having multiple kids is that you are so sleep deprived when you have the second one, or I'm assuming beyond that you don't actually form long-term memories for like a while. So yeah, I basically have no memories of, I mean, I remember like the key important moments of my son's life, but the first 9 months is kind of a blur. Like, honestly, my wife and I talked about this I don't know, sometime in the last year. We're like, do we really remember like much of his first year? And it's like, no, not really, because we were not sleeping and we had 2 children under 2 years old. And that's a lot. That's a lot to deal with.
Yeah, that is a lot to deal with. I honestly cannot imagine and have only heard stories.
Yeah, basically. But you were playing games with your nephew too, right?
Yeah, and it's like not quite the same thing, but it's whenever I think of certain games that I really think of him. Like even just a couple of years ago with Lego The Incredibles, it was whenever I think about that game, Jennifer bought it and played through it, but it was one of the first games that I was ever able to just sit down on the couch and watch my nephew play. And it just brings that kind of feeling that like, oh man, this is going to be really good to share with him. And just he's been calling recently. He's 9 years old now, and so he'll call recently and talk to me about Cat Quest. Like he called me on the day Cat Quest 2 was released, and things like that, and telling me what's going on and how he's playing it and all that. But my favorite memory that I have and this is for Pokemon last year of Let's Go. I got it for Christmas last year in just 2018, and so like he's 8 years old at the time, and I get it, and I brought my Switch because I knew that I knew I was gonna be getting it, and so I was gonna play it, and I pull it up, I get on the love seat that reclines, and he came over there and snuggled up against me while I was playing this to watch me play Let's Go Pikachu, and then he wanted to play, so I saved it, gave it to him. He named his Pikachu the same thing I did. We both named our Pikachus Poop Sock, and so from then on, like over the last year, whenever I think of Pokemon, I think of just that I have that sense memory of Riley like wanting to be near me, watch me play this, and then loving me so much he named his Pikachu after mine like that. And it's just one of those just warming memories where I understand those moments that you have with kids that you know you're going to remember. It's like you realize it's special while it's going on. It's like that's one of those for me that's really centered around a video game that's like Christmas time and Pokemon and Riley. That's going to be one of those games and memories that's always going to be special to me.
That's awesome. That's really cool. But yeah, I mean, that kind of catches us up to approximately now, not exactly now, but far enough to like say, okay, we covered the rest of the games of our lives up to recently anyway. Before we dive into some weekly geekery, what do you have for Geeky Off for the week?
Yeah, of course. We have Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/geek2geekcast and support the podcast. You can get a Discord role, have your name show up in purple, talk with us, hang out. We're hoping to get some exclusive content on there very, very soon. We've just got to figure out how to do it and work it in. But it is you supporting us through Patreon that lets us do all sorts of cool stuff and do this podcast. So we really appreciate your support in any way possible. That is patreon.com/geek2geekcast.
Awesome. Around the network this week, Geektitude with Joe Hogan and Ray Vargas. They was putting out something. I don't know what came out this week because it hasn't come out yet. Tea Time with Katie and Chelsea. They talked about Xenon Girl of the 21st Century, which, wow, that was a blast from the past of a movie. Dragon Quest FM with you and Austin. You guys talked about the best demo ever made. I'm assuming this was about Dragon Quest S? 9? 10,
11.
12,
S.
11.
Yep.
Yes. I'm 11, up to date on Dragon Quest.
We wish it were 12.
You can tell.
No.
And sometimes Rob, they talked about getting a dog because they just got a dog. Troidal is streaming randomly in the mornings these days. And then Capsule J is streaming usually Tuesdays from 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern or sometimes on Sunday nights. And then, of course, you can go to the Geekery and read about stuff from Austin. He's talking about his Dragon Quest, and he kind of picked it back up and did some stuff about horse racing and mini games in Dragon Quest, or the 13th Story, who's always writing about something game-related and new. And you can find all of that at geek2geekmedia.com, or you can go to geek2geekmedia.com/subscribe and get it delivered to you. So with that being said, what have you been geeking out about this week?
Well, this week I've been playing Luigi's Mansion 3 a lot. I know you have that in your geekery as well. But my whole thing is that this might be the best co-op game I've ever played. I adore this game. Jennifer and I have been playing this. Like I talked about, we had talked about before earlier in this episode, where I had Mario Kart on the Wii on my honeymoon. And one of the things about it was that we forgot when we got into the mountains, when we got into the cabin, that we didn't bring our nunchucks for the Wii. So we didn't like the motion control. So we had to go out of the cabin and go buy two nunchucks for the Wii remotes. And we always joked around. It's like, man, we cannot do anything like that. We just had to go spend extra money. We tried to prep for it. This time we brought Luigi's Mansion and the Switch. I packed up the dock, everything to hook it up to the TV. And I didn't bring an HDMI cable. And it turns out that I was like, the condo we're going to says it has DVD players and stuff. It'll be fine. There's an HDMI cable there. There was not. So we had to set up Luigi's Mansion and play it on the tiny screen like they do in the commercials, which is not ideal. And then we went and had to buy another HDMI cable and went at the store while we were out so we could hook it up to the TV over the weekend. And so it's like 10 years apart. We bring a game to play on but either our wedding weekend, our honeymoon, or the 10-year anniversary trip, and we still forget something where we can't play it effectively. And apparently that's just us. But we've had such a good time playing this that like we now go around the house, both of us just going, Mario, because it's so much fun when he does that, like Mario. It's so fun. Just try Mario. So fun. And it's like I'm Luigi. It's simple and fun and not stressful. Well, there've been like 2 stressful parts so far, and I think you've gotten to one of the single most stressful part of it. And it's like I play Luigi, she plays Luigi. We've split it up back and forth a little bit. But when there has to be a mechanic that one or the other one of us would be better at. But generally, I'm Luigi, or as I put it last night, Goobiji.
I get it.
Goobiji, because I'm, Yeah, that's me. But okay. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I've been playing Luigi's Mansion 3 also. It was fun until I got to this one boss that I got stuck on, and it's rare for me to get all the way stuck on a boss. I tried it for like an hour or two, and then I gave up, and I think I'm never going back to the game. So
you need to get a child to play co-op with you. And I say it like this because it's fun for me to say. Seriously, that is the only way we were able to beat it. I know I sent you a link or a screenshot of the strategy to do it solo, and there's no way that I would be able to do that. Like, actually, what you have to do with both of us playing it, it was a little frustrating and stressful. Like, it was having to get it done, but once you got it, it's the boss of B2, you guys, just so that you guys know to prep yourselves that it's going to be frustrating when you get to level B2. It is the worst designed boss in a video game I've played in a very, very, very long time. But in co-op, with one person being able to play Luigi up top and the other person being Luigi down on the bottom, made it doable, and we only took 2 attempts to do it that way to learn how.
Yeah, I don't know. It's rare to get this stuck on a boss, and it's like halfway through the game, and I started looking up strategies for it, and I was like, I'm doing all these things, I just can't do it. It also, a bunch of people called it out as being the hardest single encounter in the entire game, like even compared to the end bosses and stuff. So it just feels like an oversight of game design, which is sad. I like the rest of it. Bad. I really liked the rest of Luigi's Mansion 3 that I played. So I don't know. I don't know how to recommend or not recommend that when one boss is kind of completely throwing me off.
It is so out of character, or well, out of character, I guess, for the rest of the game around it, that it just all of a sudden hits you with a brick wall.
Yeah, basically. So outside of Luigi's Mansion, I got around to trying the Marvel Champions LCG that just came out from Fantasy Flight Games. So I walked my kids through around because they wanted to try it out. And it reminds me of some of the things that I liked about the Lord of the Rings LCG, except it's like a single character instead of having like a multiple characters for each player that's playing. And you have 2 sides of your character, which is cool too. You have your alter ego and you have your superhero side. So it behaves differently depending on which side it's on. And the theme really worked for me. The gameplay worked. I play it with the kids, and I think it's just slightly too advanced for them. Like, they got it, but there's a difference between them getting a game and them it being simple enough that they don't even need that simple of a game, but it needs to be simple enough that they can like stay focused on it. And so that's kind of like what I watch for, is like, how much do I have to remind them, hey, take your turn, or like, okay, what's next, or what do you have to think about next, and how much they start to like mentally drift from it. So I think this one is a little bit beyond them for another couple years, but they had fun with it, which was good. But for now, it'll probably either be like a single player game for me, or more likely I'll just wait until like other adults are around that I can play with. But the game itself seems solid.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds neat. Anything that Fantasy Flight does seems really interesting to me anyway. And the Marvel Champions tabletop game, I guess tabletop is the way to put it. This is a tabletop game, but the RPG seems really, really awesome and well done too. So I can only imagine the LCG is. Yeah.
So the other thing that I finished off was my Star Wars rewatch, which I started talking about last week. So where I left off was I had watched chronologically in story order, including Solo and Rogue One, all the way through A New Hope. So I kind of picked up this week with Empire Strikes Back, and I watched the rest of it. And I still like it. I still like Star Wars, obviously. It's funny how often Vader is just kind of a beleaguered construction project manager, and I feel bad for him.
Kinda.
Like he's a middle manager too, which even that gets more of my sympathy because that's where I am at the moment. And, I feel his pain. Poor Vader. Empire Strikes Back is still a really good movie. Really, really good movie. It's right up there near the top of all of the Star Wars movies for me. Return of the Jedi, I think every time I watch it, it's a little bit weaker in my mind. Like, it's okay. It caps off the original trilogy, but there's a whole Tatooine sequence, and it's just too long. It's way longer than it needs to be. It doesn't do a whole lot for what it accomplishes in that time, and it just feels kind of slow. And then one of the other things that I noticed is that, like, and it's not a huge revelation, people know this, like, music is such an important part of Star Wars, right? And the scores for these movies are really good, but especially I was noticing it as I was going into the sequel trilogy, because like Rey's theme and Rey's motif are just excellent. They are amazing. And they might be my favorite music in all of Star Wars. And once I started noticing that and how it ties like Rey's motif and her theme into like the Force theme, which is also Luke's theme, and like Leia's theme is in there, especially in The Last Jedi. And I think the sequel trilogy has the best music out of all of the Star Wars movies. It's so well done.
It is. Rey's theme is probably my favorite of anything they've done, especially recently. Like Duel of the Fates is absolutely brilliant, and I actually get chills and goosebumps when I listen to it all the way through. Like, it's so good. But Rey's theme, that motif that they have for Rey, it sounds so nice. It's just pleasant to hear, and it makes me happy when I hear it.
Yeah, I like it a lot. And I mean, the other thing is that I still like The Last Jedi a lot, and that didn't change at all with this rewatch. The interesting thing is that, well, one of the things I want to say is that just like all of the action sequences in the sequel trilogy so far are amazing because they're done with modern production values and they still feel like Star Wars. So they just work for me like in a way that few action scenes and action movies do these days. But Star Wars absolutely functions. Like it works for me. But yeah, I like The Last Jedi a lot. And I think that now, and this is surprising to me, my number one is still The Last Jedi. That part's not surprising. That's kind of what I thought would happen because that was where I left it off mentally. My number two Star Wars movie is now Rogue One. And I know that probably physically hurts you, but it's the truth. And I like that movie a lot, like a lot.
I love The Last Jedi. I don't think it has exactly what I love about Star Wars enough to be in the top slot, but I still really love it. Like, even rewatching it recently, I realized that there are still things that happened during the part in the middle that is too long that were necessary for things to move forward. Like, it could have been done differently and better, but I still like that movie a lot. Like, it's in the top half at the very least.
Yeah. But Rogue One is not where it is for you, compared to where it is for me.
No, Rogue One is dead last.
Yeah, I figured that might be what you said. Yeah. Yeah, but that's what I've been up to this week.
And basically, speaking of Star Wars, like, I woke up early this morning and watched The Mandalorian, which, not saying a lot about it or anything, like, we're doing an entire episode on the first 2 episodes of it next week to have a little bit more under our belt, but you haven't seen it, and so I'm just so excited for you to watch it.
Yeah, me too. I really want to watch it.
Cannot wait for you to see this movie, or this show. Like, it's, knowing you, I just have so many things I want to say. Like, basically, I really liked it, and so I'm excited to see how you feel about certain things in the episode.
Yeah, but next week. We'll report back next week, and we'll give some impressions of Disney Plus in general, but mostly we want to talk about The Mandalorian next week.
Yep, absolutely. And cool. Disney Plus, so far today, I did learn, has the new DuckTales show on it, so I'm very happy about that.
That's good.
Just thoughts and geeky stuff I've been geeking out about. Got real excited that DuckTales was on there.
Perfect. That's probably it for this week. You guys can write to us with comments, suggestions, or feedback. Our email address is geek2geekcast@gmail.com, or reach us on Twitter @geek2geekcast. We also have longer discussion threads on our subreddit at reddit.com/r/geek2geekcast.
We also have great discussions on Slack and Discord. You can go to geek2geekmedia.com for invite links, and while you're there, be sure to check out all the other content on the network.
I blog at agreenmushroom.com, and you can find me at grnmushroom. That's green mushroom without the E's on Twitter.
And I'm on Twitter as @Professor Beej. That's Beej with 2 E's, and you can listen to me talk even more on the Dragon Quest FM podcast.
We've been Void and Beej with your Geek to Geek podcast. That'll do it for this week. See you next week, geeks.
Bleep, bloop, bleep, bloop, bleep, bloop, video games.
Hey geeks, this is Capsule J. I'm a streamer on the Geek to Geek Media Network. If you like discovering new games and chatting with cool nerdy folks, be sure to check out my channel on Twitch. You can find it at twitch.tv/CapsuleJ. That's CapsuleJay. I stream a blend of indies, retro games, and RPGs most Tuesday nights from 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern, and occasionally on Thursdays and weekends. Hope to see you then.
Hi, my name is Joe Hogan, and I'm a geek. And if you're currently listening to this, there's a good chance you're a geek too. So check out my podcast, Geektitude. Each week, I talk with somebody about their geek aptitude. Sometimes I talk to people in a geeky profession. Sometimes it's someone doing something really cool with their geekiness. Often it's another geeky podcaster. But it's always someone who wants to share their inner geek. So join me each week as we come together to geek out about all the geeky stuff we love. And remember, this week, keep it geek.
Hello friends, this is Troidal Power inviting you to join me over on Twitch most weeknights sometime after dinner. Video games have always been a social hobby for me, with friends and family crammed together on a couch chatting away while someone holds the controller. And thanks to the power of the internet, I've got my own virtual couch over on Twitch where you can kick back and goof off while I play games. Find me on Twitch by searching Troidal Power, that's TROYTLE Power, to snag a spot on the couch.
Hello, I'm Katie.
And I'm Chelsea.
And together we are Tea Time with Katie and Chelsea, a podcast all about pop culture.
We talk about books, movies, music, basically anything we want at this point. Yes, we obsess about K-pop.
And Keanu Reeves.
And sometimes Katie cries on the podcast.
Hey, that's rude.
But really, we're just here to talk about all the things that we love, so make sure to head over to teatimewithkc.com and geek2geekmedia.com to check us out. And don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to our show wherever you download your podcasts. Bye!